and climate change for Kakamega County. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed delegates, all honored guests and protocol observed, good afternoon or good evening. Yeah, it is with great pleasure and privilege that I stand before you in this Kakamega County International Investment Conference as we gather here to unlock investment opportunities for sustainable water and sanitation infrastructure in Kakamega County. Now, looking at Kakamega County water sector at a glance, all of us within the county, and I'm sure it's across all counties, most counties, and particularly Kakamega County, we really value the water sector, and the governor has a mandate priority whereby he has a clarion call in his manifesto of Amati Kumulyango. Amati Kumulyango meaning water at the doorstep. So in his manifesto, he promised people to bring water at the doorstep of every household. And therefore, all our efforts are geared towards providing water at the doorstep. And as per the theme of the World Food Day, we also agree that water is life and water is food. But the stark reality is that access to basic water supply and sanitation is not yet adequate. As we grapple with the ever-increasing needs of our populations, the urgency to scale up the investments for achieving universal access to water and sanitation cannot be overstated. The county is losing a lot of significant revenue in terms of GDP due to water-related issues encompassing inadequate access, contamination, and poor sanitation. Currently, our estimated water coverage stands at 61.7%. While this figure may seem promising at first glance, it conceals the harsh reality faced by many of our citizens, particularly those living in the rural areas. Despite progress made in improving the access to water services, disparities still persist, leaving a significant portion of our population underserved and vulnerable. To address this disparity, Kakamega County has established two distinct water service providers to cater for both the urban and the rural communities. We have KACWASCO, that is Kakamega County Water and Sanitation Company, that serves the urban areas, while Kakamega County Rural Water and Sanitation Company, KACWASCO, focuses on water service provision to the rural areas. Now, the challenges faced by different segments of our population are therefore addressed by those two different water service providers. Now, improving access to water is a top priority for the current county government administration, and this is echoed by the governor's clarion call of Amati Kumulyango. It's a responsive initiative that challenges the county government to seek different resources from different people so that we can be able to achieve the governor's manifesto. We have deliberately facilitated and created an enabling environment by formulating and implementing critical legal instruments and regulations, giving opportunity and space for private investments and partnerships for improved service delivery. The lack of universal access to safe water and sanitation is also a significant burden to women and girls. Furthermore, there is still insufficient attention given to sustainability. This highlights the need for stronger focus on long-term viability and maintenance. When it comes to governance in the water sector within Kakamega County, we are ensuring that people have access to water by also putting in place institutions. That is, we have the boards of the 2 water service providers are in place. We have taken them through various training for corporate governance. We are also still taking them through other trainings so that they are able to undertake their mandate efficiently. As a department, we have also provided strong enabling environment for water-related investment through formulation of sector-specific policies, regulations. And this will also enable our partners to plug in where we need their support. We may also have to review our policies and regulations from time to time based on the emerging issues and specific needs. Water-related investments can also deliver substantial benefits for water security and sustainable development. Climate change is increasingly putting a lot of pressure on our water systems and heightens the value of investments in resilience. The more reason why my department has actually channeled some of the resources that were allocated for climate change under FLOCA to be able to carry out a water infrastructure. Some of the opportunities for investment in the water sector in Kakamega County include institutional strengthening, water and sanitation infrastructure development, both under KACWASCO, and the county department, technology and solutions to improve operational efficiencies and non-revenue water management. For this, we invite partners to come in strongly to help us in managing non-revenue water, and this might include installation of smart meters, installation of production meters, and also if we can have a technology where we can sense leakages as fast as possible and address them. Also, there is an opportunity to provide incentives for the protection and restoration of our water sources. And I'm happy to see some of our partners here who have been helping us. There is Dr. Stella for the Rivayala catchment. We are going to partner strongly with the Rivayala Fund and the First Lady's initiative to be able to protect our catchment areas. We also still require a lot of investments in scale to take advantage of economies of scale, where we can have one major project serving a big population of people. And I appreciate strongly the national government through Lake Victoria North Water Services for the various plans they have for Kakamega County and for Western region at large. There is an opportunity also in wash systems, designing wash systems that are resilient to climate change and increasing water and sanitation demands. So the statistics we have may point the picture as very grim, but they also demonstrate that the water and sanitation sector is ripe for transformation. It is ripe for investment. It is time to step up our investment in clean water and sanitation and deliver impact at scale. Today, let us recommit ourselves to turning the dream of universal access to water and sanitation in Kakamega County and make it a reality. The time to act is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Waziri. Thank you, Waziri, for starting us off as our keynote speaker. I'll now call upon our next speakers in this session. We will have 3 more speakers before we get to our panelists. We will start by Mr. Isaac Mudoni Kega. Mr. Isaac Mudoni Kega is here on behalf of the Water Sector Fund, Water Service Trust Fund. That is what is commonly called. Mr. Isaac Kega is a professional economist who has worked for over 18 years in the public sector, firstly with the National Treasury, where he was working under the Planning Department, Planning and Economic Planning, as a Director of Economic Planning. Mr. Isaac Kakamega also works with the Water Sector Fund currently as the General Manager, Investment and Program. He's a positive and responsible leader who is in charge of management of all Water Fund support programs, and his portfolio majorly is for the county governments. Mr. Isaac Kega, he's here today with us on behalf of the CEO WSTF, Mr. Willis Ombai, to talk to us about the funding and investment opportunities we have. As we all know, Water Sector Trust Fund is a creation of the Water Act 2016, mandated to provide conditional and unconditional grants to the counties and to assist in financing and development of water infrastructure. Among the other roles for the Water Sector Trust Fund, it is to assist in financing both water and sanitation and also water resources management projects to the underserved and marginalized rural areas. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Isaac Kega as one of our speakers this afternoon. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Christabel. I take note that you've done your homework and already done with the first page of my opening remarks. Thank you very much. My name is Isaac Kega Odoni. As said, I'm the head of programs at the Water Sector Trust Fund, an institution that I've served for the last, from 2010, that should be around 15 years now. So I take great pleasure in joining the sitting today as we discuss a matter that is, of course, a critical social and economic affair, and is directly relevant to the discussions that we have in the general context of the conference that we are attending this afternoon. The discussions around how we're going to upscale private sector investments in promoting economic development within Kakamega County. Allow me also to indicate that the Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Willis Ombai, had indicated intent of joining this sitting. Unfortunately, he's involved in another equally important national engagement, and has thus requested me to come and join you in the discussions this afternoon. So I'll make the remarks and the speech on behalf of the CEO, who's unfortunately not able to join us this afternoon. So my discussion, and of course the notes revolve around innovative financing and the business of the Water Sector Trust Fund. Now, in appreciation, allow me to take this opportunity to express the fund's appreciation for the invitation to participate in the conference, and specifically so to this session where we discuss water issues. It is indeed, as agreed by His Excellency the President this morning, it's indeed a milestone for the county and a win for devolution. And we would want to specifically thank His Excellency the Governor of Kakamega County for putting together this conference. We do hope that the objectives of the conference are going to be achieved, and specifically so that we're going to have an enhanced level of investments by the private sector. Ladies and gentlemen, we, as has been stated, the Water Sector Trust Fund is a state corporation established under the Water Act of 2016, Section 113 and Section 114, with a mandate to enhance access to water services through investments in various options, majorly targeting the underserved persons within both the urban areas and the rural areas. And being that the county governments have been mandated by the Constitution to provide the water services, then the Water Act 2016, therefore expect us to work through the county governments in providing these levels of financing. So we work through various investment mechanisms. One of them is targeting the communities, through especially in the rural areas, where we target investments in formally registered CBOs and NGOs, as well as the non-state actors. We also invest in water service providers that are formally registered with the WASREP through the Urban Investments Program. And we also invest in water resource management activities through financial support to water resource users associations. We invest in community forest associations, as well as investments in conservancies, majorly focusing on management and protection of our catchments. Ladies and gentlemen, before we delve into the specific issues and how WSTF invests in water services, allow me to take the next few minutes and talk about the global context, as well as the national context, and how the WSTF is then investing in this. Allow me to remind this sitting that the country, Kenya, is a signatory to Agenda 2030, as well as the SDG goals. And we have committed to ensuring that there is adequate access to water for all by 2030. And for the country to achieve this, what we consider to be a serious ambition, we have developed at the national level the National Water Master Plan that also sets us very ambitious targets of ensuring adequate access to water service for all by the year 2030. So for this to be realized then, we did realize that there was a need to develop a financing plan or the investment plan. And for that reason, the National Water Sector Investment Plan has been developed, basically identifying the areas of support and the areas of investments that the country needs to focus on, and also identifying the financing requirements to realize the ambitions that we have under the National Water Master Plan. Based on this and based on the assessments, we realize that this plan is expected to cost around 12.9 billion shillings, roughly around 1.8 trillion shillings in the next 7 or so years. And out of this, the government is only able to mobilize around roughly 800 billion shillings, meaning that we still have funding gaps of around a billion shillings, 995 billion shillings. This therefore emphasizes the need for innovative financing mechanisms to reach these financing goals, and that is one of the objectives that really emphasizes why the WSTF exists as an entity. Now, of course, in addition to the financing gaps that the sector continues to grapple with, we all appreciate that one of the biggest challenges that this country has to deal with is the challenges of non-revenue water. As a nation, we appreciate that around 45% of our processed and treated water is lost to both commercial and technical losses. By no means, this is a huge loss. And there has been this joke around which company would run when around 45% of its revenue is actually being lost due to operational inefficiencies as well as other losses. So, as a fund, we have found the need to develop very, very innovative financing mechanisms to especially try to address the issues of around non-revenue water. And for that reason, one of the mechanisms that we are currently piloting in 5 counties with the 5 WSPs is what we call the performance-based contracting model, the PPC. The way this model is structured, and it is directly in line with the theme of the conference that we are attending, is that we have contracted some consultants to really analyze the drivers behind the high levels of non-revenue water. And the intention is that upon the identification of these drivers, then we develop what we call the non-revenue water strategies. And a business case is made for this. The intention here is that once this non-revenue, because it makes sense to invest in addressing non-revenue water issues. So the intention is that we want to entice or encourage the private sector to come in and address the issues of non-revenue. Just practical example is that, for example, if you have one utility that struggles with technical losses as a result of very old pipelines, then we invite a private sector player through an open tender method to come in and agree to, of course through competitive means, to come in and fix the challenges that we have with these old transmission systems. If that happens, then it basically means that there will be increased revenue for the WSP, the water service provider. Then our proposal is very simple, and it's going to be a win-win for all of us. As a result of the additional revenue available to this WSP, this revenue can be shared between the utility and the private sector player. Of course, based on our assessments, we realize that one of the biggest challenges that we have with this model is that the costs are too high, and therefore the repayment tenor and the returns on investment for the private sector may be a challenge. And that's why we come in again as a fund. We have engaged and we are in discussions with the World Bank to meet the financing gap. And the World Bank has agreed to provide the gap funding to address that challenge and make it sustainable and attractive to these private investors. Apart from the PPC, we are all aware that the WSTF has successfully piloted and is actually implementing results-based financing, the RPF models, as well as the aid on delivery models. These two programs basically try to, again, encourage commercial banks to invest through commercial loans to the water service providers. Again, because of the challenges that the unique challenges that the water sector struggles with, and in appreciation of the fact that water is both an economic and social good, then we make a provision of subsidies, around 40% to around 60%, depending on the program that we're discussing. So this makes it attractive, and the WSP commits to achieving certain milestones, and once these milestones are achieved, then the subsidy is paid to the WSP and to the banks. In addition to this, and the fund is also exploring a guarantee scheme where we can commit to guaranteeing water service providers to access commercial loans, because one of the biggest challenges is the securitization of the water investments. So we are committing and we are working towards a product that is going to guarantee water service providers to be able to access commercial loans at commercial rates. In addition to this, of course, we are aware that the Water Sector Trust Fund has in the recent past also developed the performance-based, what you call the performance-based programs. And I know the utilities in this county were beneficiaries of the Conditional Liquidity Support Grant, number one, and they are also set to receive support under the Conditional Liquidity Support Grant number 2. The whole idea behind the CLSG, both 1 and 2, is that we are going to support the utilities to try to manage their levels of operational cost coverage ratios. Basically, we want them to come to a level where they are able to match the operational costs, and thus make them attractive to private sector and commercial financing. So the idea here is that we support them in various ways, and they agree to achieve certain OCCR levels. So once we invest in them, and once the OCCR level is achieved, then it means that this is converted into a grant. But if the OCCR level is not achieved, then it means that the WSP will have to pay for these monies as a loan. So meaning that they has to be based on purely performance. So that's the second, that area that we're considering very critical and aligned to the conference that we are discussing this evening. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think the final thing that basically touches on issues sanitation. Of course, we cannot separate water and sanitation issues. Is the subsidy program that we have for especially sanitation services in the low-income and underserved areas within, especially the urban areas. And the idea that we have under the subsidy program within these low-income areas is that we encourage plot owners and households to construct sanitation facilities within their localities. We also support them support the WSP to develop decentralized treatment facilities where this waste can be treated. So upon the completion of the development of the sanitation facilities, then these households are eligible for a subsidy program, just trying to encourage them, but also trying to manage the issues related to issues on sustainability and managing issues of ownership. So those are the main, what we consider to be the main innovative ways in which we are trying to support the water sector in this country to access private finance and also enhance the levels of manage the financing gap that the country is experiencing. Ladies and gentlemen, once more, on behalf of the Chief Executive Officer of the Water Sector Trust Fund, allow me to highly commend the county government of Kakamega for your cooperation and oversight during the course of implementation of the projects that we have in the past supported, and indicate that we value this partnership and we are looking forward to very productive and sustainable partnerships, as well as with the objective of enhancing service to the underserved in this county. We give our commitment as a fund that we remain steadfast in our commitment to inclusivity, equity and fairness, and investments in sustainable investments with the main objective of enhancing access to water and sanitation services. Thank you very much once more for the opportunity, and we're looking forward to the discussions. Asante.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Can you take your seat? Indeed, KACWASCO is a beneficiary greatly of the support from WSTF, and through continued partnership, we look forward and hope for more support in order for us to achieve and deliver our strategic objective. Thank you so much for your peak brief about WSTF and their mandate. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is our Managing Director, Engineer Michael Ogol. Engineer Michael Ogol is currently the Managing Director for Kakamega County Water and Sanitation Company. Engineer is a long-serving officer in the water sector. He has experience for over 10 years, having worked with Kakamega County Water and Sanitation Service Company before as the technical manager. He is the pioneer of the rural schemes we hear of in Kenya, having been the first managing director of Kakamega County Rural Water and Sanitation Company, and later transited to the managing director, Siaya Bondo Water and Sanitation Water Company. Currently, Engineer Michael is our managing director at Kakamega County Water and Sanitation Company. Like I've said, Engineer Michael has diverse knowledge and experience in the water sector. And his passion mostly is on non-revenue water and customer service. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our MD, who's going to talk to us about the challenges faced by Kakamega County Water and Sanitation Company in providing water and sanitation services to the citizenry of Kakamega County. And his major focus will be on the limited financial resources we face as a challenge, inadequate infrastructure, and other environmental factors that limit our service provision. Very windy.
Thank you, Madam Christabel, and all the audience. You have spared your time to be here. I know it is very hot, and some people are enjoying the good environment at Kakamega Forest. But at least for you, you have made a decision to be here. Thank you very much. I'll take you through the presentation, a very short time, and I believe we are going to follow each other. I'll be a bit faster, so I may not be reading slide by slide. So we can run through. That is just our presentation outline that I'll request that we go to the second. Allow me just to take you through this, because I know most of the financial institutions, they normally require a big data set of about 10 to 15 years so that they can be able to make a decision on whether to support you as a company or not. If we give you our financial statements, you'll really wonder, because the names are really mixing up. There's a place you'll see Western Water, there's a place you see Kakamega County Corporation, and there's a place you're going to see Kakamega Busia, and also to see Kakamega County Water and Sanitation Company. So I think this is a very important slide for those who want to do business with us. As we know that in water sector we have been transiting from one entity to the other, and I want to draw your attention to the Water Act of 2002, where water was actually devolved. Initially, the water service provision was the mandate to the county of the national government. But in the year 2002, now we wanted to commercialize the water service provision, and therefore many entities were established, which I don't want to go to that. But for our case, if you just go back to the previous slide, there was a company that was operating in this western region called Western Water Services. And due to governance issues, in the year 2010, the provision of water services were taken up by the then Water Services Board, what is currently called Waterworks Development Agencies. So initially, the water services were run by Western Water Services, and then they were taken over by Lake Victoria North Water Services Board up to the year 2010. And then in the year 2010, because the water boards, their main role and mandate was to do asset development, so they formed a water service provider called Kakamega Busia Water Supply. We can continue. Now, after the passing of the new constitution, we know that every county was aspiring and admiring to have their own water services. So at that time, the water was being supplied to Kakamega and Busia by one company. So at that time, Busia wanted their own water company, Kakamega also wanted their water company. And the counties agreed to form an interim committee, which was able now to ensure that every county have their water company. So in that case, our case, we had Kakamega County Water and Sanitation Company, and Busia also had their own water service provider. Now, as I summarize that, we know that at a given moment in the service provision in Kakamega, we transited to Kakamega County Water Corporation. And basically it was for us to get some financing from the county government, because when we started getting finances, there were issues from the county assembly that this is a private company, why do you want to finance it? So at one moment, you will see our documents reading Kakamega County Water Corporation. But again, because the water is heavily regulated, we were advised by WASREP that we have to be a water service provider that is regulated by them, and as that, we went back to Kakamega County Water and Sanitation Company. So that is what we have today. Now, in my executive summary, I think I've outlined that we are a company mandated by the county government of Kakamega to provide water and sanitation services, and we are registered or licensed by WASREP. Currently, we are operating about 9 schemes that are basically in town, because in Kakamega County there are 2 water companies. There are a company mandated to do the provision in urban centers, and there's a company which is mandated to do provision in rural centers. And so for us, we are concentrating in urban areas, that is Kakamega where we are, Nimuyas, Shitoli, Tindinyo, Shinyalu, Butere, Navahol, not Navahol, but Liranda, and then Tindinyo, Malava, and Kipkaren. Basically, we have 2 methods of water supply, that is the surface water supply and underground water supply. And in Kakamega, we receive our water from Nandi. We currently have a demand capacity of around 33,000 cubic meters of water per day, but we are only able to supply around 13,000 cubic meters of water per day due to the challenges that I'm going to outline towards the end of my presentation. So our vision is to be an effective and efficient water service provider, and our mission is to sustainably provide quality, affordable, reliable water and sanitation services to the satisfaction of our stakeholders and in accordance to our regulator, that is WASREP. So that are the service areas that we are providing water. One of the challenges that I want to draw to your attention is that if you look at that map, there are many colors, and men are colorblind. I don't know why that's true. But if you look at the color of our moderator, Madam Christabel, are you seeing whatever she's wearing? That are the colors on the map. Those are the areas that we are supplying. I think it's a blue. Whether I know that it's a sky blue, Babunda blue, but it's a blue color. So those are the areas we are supplying. So one of the challenges we have there that you see we have a very big coverage that we are supposed to provide water to. But the only areas we are supplying is roughly, say as Waziri said, 61%. So we have a big potential of reaching out to people. In what my chairman always say, Amansi Umoliango. So we can go to the next slide. So the areas that we are serving or where we are concentrating, and this one I'm projecting because we have maybe investors or interested partners that we are, as a company, we have mandate to provide water through piped water, a mandate to provide quality water, that is through water tankers. We have a mandate to do sewerage management or sanitation. We have a mandate to also laboratory services, technical services, that we are doing as a company. So I'll want to go through very fast. So this is the Amansi Muliango Clarum call by His Excellency the Governor. So people who are interested in our water, you can come and make application, and then we are able to do for you piped water to your place, as long as you are staying within an area where we are serving. That's our treatment plant, where we are getting almost 80% of our plant, our water, Tindinho. The water quality, I think all of us know what happened in Muhumu Girls, and we have just tried to be vigilant to ensure that the schools and the learning institutions that we are within our service area, we do their water quality analysis, testing, and advisory. So many times you'll find us into the schools to just ensure that the water that they are supplying to the people are safe. Sanitation services, as I said, the sanitation coverage are roughly above 80%, but for the sewerage coverage is only 18%. So for areas where they don't have a network or a sewered sanitation, we usually have an exhauster to be able to visit those areas and exhaust, especially those who have septic tanks. So once it has been exhausted, we have a treatment facility where it is being disposed, and then the biological treatment process takes place. That's for the water. For those who have weddings and funerals, sometimes you hire the same. But also we have registered a number of water tankers that are supplying water to our catchment. So they are regulated and registered by the company. That's for our wastewater treatment. I think if you look at it and you are a technical guy, you will see and realize that is not really in the right status. And that's an investment opportunity. It requires major rehabilitation. We're also giving back to the society through CSR services. So some of the projects that as a company we are doing are as outlined. You know, as an investor, you may not want to start working with a company who has never been doing anything. So for a company, I want to say that we have been doing some projects. This is a project which is funded fully by the county government of Kakamega, and it was supposed to mitigate the issues of rationing and water shortage in Kakamega town. So we are doing a storage tank at Muranda for the capacity of 5,000 cubic. The tank is about 98% complete, pending some additional funding from the county government of Kakamega. This is a project that is done by our own source revenue. As you have been informed by the moderator, that we are supposed to also reflect on how the environment is affecting us. So during the rainy season, I think last year, there was a lot of erosion along our main line, supplying water to the treatment work. So we had to rehabilitate and ensure that we secure the pipeline. And that's why the catchment protection is very key for us, because when there's erosion of the river, it means much of the water will go downstream, and we shall not be able to abstract adequate water for treatment. So these are one of the projects which were done by the company through own source revenue. On the last project that I've just sampled out, this is a project that has been supported fully by Water Sector Trust Fund, and it was to mitigate the issues of low supply in Malava. So we did a proposal to Water Sector Trust Fund, and we were able to get some funds to enhance water supply in Malava. And that is to give our investors, potential investors, the confidence that other investors have trusted us with their money, and we have spent it well to improve the livelihood of the people. These are our fact sheets. Anybody who want to even marry you will want to know your parents, your sisters, your brothers, and your friends. So this is our status as a company. The design capacity of all treatment works is 32,000. Whatever we are able to get from them is only 13,000. So it means there are some treatment works which are not really working. And I've mentioned Chitoli, I've mentioned the one at Savona, I've mentioned one in Lumakanda. So there was a design capacity, but as a company we are not able to utilize 100% the capacity of those treatment plants because they are old and dilapidated. So there's opportunity to revive those particular plants, and I'll show you in the last slides what is required. Our coverage is currently is around slightly 400 because we have done some projects and we have yet to update. On water coverage is around 87%, non-revenue water which we are not able to really account for it is around 41%. And some of the causes of this is the road destruction. We have a lot of the contractors doing some work within the town, but sometimes they don't notify the company. So you find that a lot of water is being wasted during these road rehabilitation works. We also have some people who are stealing water. They use water, but they don't want to pay. So they connect the pipes directly. And also we have some meters which were installed many years ago, and therefore they are old and they're not able to give us accurate reading. And then sometimes human error, you find some places where someone reads 8 as 5. So those are some of the human errors. We mentioned that we have a mitigation plan on how to address some of these challenges, and I will show you later. Our total connection, our database is around 38,000 customers. The staff productivity is around 5, and hours of supply is 18. However, there are some areas that they get only water 3 days a week because of the rationing program that we have. So it is only in the Mumias that we have water 24/7. On the challenges, I want to skip that slide because it is appearing somewhere, so we can go. So I think this is the main thing for the day. I don't know whether it can be expanded, but if not, then my voice will be loud enough. We have identified the challenges that we have as a company and the proposed interventions or the opportunity for investment. And investment, we are looking for people who are able to partner with us so that we address some of these challenges, someone who is willing to invest in such projects. So a challenge provides an opportunity for investment. So one of the challenge, and that is cutting across all water companies, that as a company we have high non-revenue water, which is at 41%. So it means if we have 100 bottles of sodas and we are transporting them to this conference, we are only able to deliver 41 bottles. So along the way, we are losing almost 59 bottles of water. No, it means that if we have 100 bottles of water to deliver to this conference, we are only delivering 59 bottles, but 41 bottles of water, we don't know where they are going to. So as a company, that's a big challenge that hinders the service provision that is anticipated. Our sector benchmark, the regulator requires that after doing all the processes, you are allowed to lose 25% because of the infrastructural challenges and because of the transmission line. But as a company, you realize that we are at 41%, so we are above the allowed benchmark of 25%. And some of the challenges resulting from that, I think I've mentioned. But what do we really want to do as a company? What are we presenting to our partners or our investors? One, we want to do replacement of the production meters. You can only manage what you can measure. So you find that some of the plants we have, the meters there are not working fully. So we want to replace those meters which are not working. And also we want to establish DMS, district metered areas. We want to isolate and ensure that we manage our water through small areas to be able to ensure that there's efficiency and accountability for the staff. Our budget there is around 80 million, and that will involve buying all the production meter. One production meter alone is around 1.2 million. So if we have around 6, then it shoots around 8 million. And then establishment of DMS involve buying of meters and also doing a network rearrangement. Then we also want to do consumer meters. As I mentioned, most of our meters are old. And if I have to take a survey now, you realize 2, maybe out of 5 customers will be complaining about our bills. And this is because the meters that they have are either over-registering or under-registering. So as a company, we want to ensure that our customers are happy by replacing the meters which are not working to ensure that whatever you are billed is accurate and you will be able to pay. Most of the people with complaints, they are always reluctant to pay, and therefore reducing the ability, the rate at which you are recovering our revenues. 3, we want to adopt technology. I remember when I was in high school, I used to do letters. We used to write letters, but currently we use WhatsApp and we do SMSs. So we have to change with technology. If you don't change, then change will change you. For banking, when I was in high school, I used to do at the bank. There was one where you present a book. It's called Coop Bank. And then you draw across the counter. Currently, you can withdraw money through a phone. So as a company, you want to adopt technology and ensure that we can read our meters wherever we are through a web-based technology without necessarily visiting customers. Because some customers, especially during COVID, you could not visit those homes. And we never know when another tragedy will strike. So we want to ensure that our major consumers, learning institutions and hotels are all metered using a smart meter, where we can be able to monitor and even see their consumption in real time. We also want to foster partnership. I think Representative of CEO Water Sector Trust Fund has mentioned that we want to have a way in which we can have performance-based models where we engage a consultant not to be paid based on the work that he has done, but to be paid based on the output of the work that you have done. So if you can have arrangement and say that currently our non-revenue water is 41% and we are collecting around 28 million per month, can you be able to deal with this area and ensure that non-revenue water reduces to 30%? And therefore, we shall pay you based on the additional revenue that we are going to get out of your work. So we are looking at such arrangement, and I think they are existing. We have also mentioned about existing pipeline, which are old and dilapidated. Most of the pipeline in our service area were installed in 1970s, 80s, when majority have not been born. But currently, we have new technologies which can be able to reduce actually non-revenue water, especially the HDP pipes, because they have minimal joints and also they can be resistant to damage to an extent. So we are looking at a way of replacing the old pipes with the new pipes which are able to withstand high pressures and also to assist in areas where the leakages are rampant. We are also looking at mapping. It is a pity and a shame to say that as a company we don't know almost 6,000 customers where they are. We can have a database saying that our customers are 37,000, but if you send the staff to go and look for these customers, some are not known, simply because over the years we have staff coming and retiring, some are getting new opportunities. And it is a trend, some people when they leave the company, they don't want to show you where the meters was. Or if you transfer them from one station to another, then they'll not be able to hand over some stations. So as a company, what we want to do is to do customer identification survey, do a door-to-door survey, and map all these particular consumers, both the ones which are already have water, the ones which are already disconnected, and the ones which are potential, and have it on a GIS platform where we can be able to monitor each and every customer and know where they are, so that even if I'm not there tomorrow or a meter reader is not there, then anybody is coming to the company can have a GIS map and track those customers to avoid in a situation where a customer is known today because meter reader X is in the system. Tomorrow when he retires, that customer is also lost. So that's something we want to do. You can go to the next slide. I think I've done justice to non-revenue water. If you want more notes, you can see me after this. The second problem that we have, please just back, is about the deficit in water supply. I mentioned that as a company, we have a demand capacity of 33,000 cubic of water per day. But whatever we can able to supply our consumers is 13,000 cubic. So we have a big demand deficit of around 20,000 cubic. The reasons or way we want to address this gap as outlined: one, we have an old treatment plant just next to Savannah near airstrip. For those who have been blessed to fly over the skies, you can see a treatment plant basically around 2 kilometers from where we are. This plant was operational until 2010 when we had a gravity system. So currently it is in a very bad state, but we are mobilizing resources through the county government of Kakamega to be able to revive it and give us additional water supply of 8,200 cubic per day. Two, we have the same system at Chitoli, which is also old and which was abandoned around 2010, and we require to rehabilitate to get additional water for 3,500 to supply schools like Mukumu Girls, Mukumu Boys, Sigalagala, Musinga towards Butere. So if that one can be rehabilitated, then we are sure of getting 3,500 cubic meters of water into our system. We also want to measure on solar installations, and this is basically inside of Butere and Malava. We want to do additional boreholes to be able to supply into the demand. Because like in Butere Girls, the population is high, but we don't give them water adequately because of the challenges that we have. In Malava, we have a new storage tank and we have a new network, but the water is not adequate. We are partnering with the Lake Victoria North Water Works Development Agency and the county government to get additional water supply for Malava. But the way Malava will be a municipality, maybe in the next 6 months, and therefore, state as a municipality require that some certain criteria has to be met. One of them is sanitation, and two is water supply. We are also looking at Kipkaren, Lumakanda. Kipkaren, Lumakanda currently is a pumping scheme. I'm paying power to the tune of around 500,000, but I'm only able to collect 300,000 shillings. So it's a loss. So what we want to do as a company is to ensure that we solarize the treatment plant to be able to make a business case for that scheme. And not only for the cost of power being high, but the power is erratic. Sometimes it is so high voltage or low voltage. And when you are using pumps, when the voltage is so high or too low, then you cannot run those motors. In fact, the rate at which we are losing motors is so high. In a span of 6 months, we have lost 3 motors. And that is a loss, not only in terms of revenues, but also in service provision. People go for, say, 5 days without water in a span of 1 month. So we believe that if we can have a hybrid system, a solar system, then it can be able to blend on the gap. Allow me to go to on the sewerage or sanitation. As a company, our sewerage coverage is only 18% against water, which is at 87%. And this poses a big challenge because we know almost 75% of the water which is used is supposed to go back as a wastewater. But we don't have a proper disposal of this water, especially in Mumias. I've mentioned that we have a treatment plant with a design capacity of 15,000 cubic of water per day. But there is no proper sewer sanitation in Mumias, except the DTF that we are able to construct courtesy of Water Sector Trust Fund. So you find that after the water has been used in our places for bathing, for everything, flushing, this water mass fund is way out. So when it is not properly collected through sewer system and disposed of, then we can say our sanitation is not well managed. So as a company, we are looking at a way through which we can have additional sewerage treatment facility. In Kakamega, we only have 2 with a design capacity of 1 Masinde Muliro at 540 cubic per day, and then Shirere at 960 cubic meters per day. Yet, in Kakamega, we receive almost 6,000 cubic of water per day. So you look at the gap. We are only able to treat, say, around 1,400 cubic of water per day. Yet, the water we receive in town is 6,000. So it provides a big challenge for us. The second intervention we want is to do rehabilitation of this existing wastewater, the one at Masinde Muliro and the one at Shirere, so that they can be able to be efficient in treatment of wastewater. And also we want to upscale the decentralized treatment facility. For those who are privileged to visit our booth, you are able to see a model for wastewater treatment facility that we have to scale for the upcoming municipality and urban centers. The fifth challenge we have is a huge financial gap. Our budget for the year is around 1.2 billion. Yet, as a company, what we are able to collect is around, say, 360 million per year. So we have a huge financial gap of around 500,000 to be able to do some of our projects that we anticipate. And the areas that we want to focus on are low-hanging fruits. We want to focus on last-mile project for water through the support of Lake Victoria North Water Works Development Agency and through the support of Western Kenya Water Program. We are doing non-revenue water management, and also we are doing some minor extensions to be able to reach more people and get more customers on board. We are also looking at being efficient, because I said, as a company, we have around 37,000 customers. But out of 37,000, 13,000 customers are not getting water. They are dormant. And they're dormant because some of them were disconnected because they're not able to pay their bills. Some are disconnected because their areas there's no water service. So we look at an investment arrangement in which we can bring on board these 13,000 customers. If we add our customer base, then automatically our revenue base will also increase to be able to finance our operations. We are also looking at a way in which we can be efficient in meter reading and billing. You realize that not all the customers that we have in our system are being billed. In fact, some approach us and say, I've not been billed for 3 months, for 2 months, and it's because of the transfer. So when you transfer meter readers, sometimes there's a loophole or a lapse. And we have decided to have a system, GIS system, that will be able to map all our consumers and have them on a platform. So at your phone, mobile phone or laptop, you are able to look at a customer and know where they are. But through smart metering again, you are able to get the readings without physically visiting customers. So the reading will be able to be conveyed to our billing system online. So thank you very much, even as you wait for the next. But I'm requesting that if you are interested in any area of partnership that I've mentioned, we have a booth out there, and we also have a number of our staff here. I just request them to stand so that you can pick one and be a friend, and they will direct you on the way you can be able to partner with us. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
Thank you so much, our MD, for that detailed brief about KACWASCO. We are on our fact sheet. I'll not want to belabor, but then move on to our next speaker. We are privileged today to have the Chief of Party of USAID, Western Kenya Water Project, Mr. Japheth Mbuvi. Mr. Japheth Mbuvi is a water and sanitation specialist with over 25 years experience in strengthening the capacity of sector institutions in water resource management for urban and rural water sector reforms. Mr. Japheth Mbuvi has worked for USAID-funded projects for the last 9 years and is currently the Chief of Party for Western Kenya Water Project, for the Western Kenya Water Project. Before this, Mr. Mbuvi was the Deputy Chief of Party for KACWASCO. KACWASCO initially was the Integrated Water, Sanitation and Hygiene Project. Earlier on, Mr. Mbuvi worked with the Water and Sanitation Program of the World Bank for over 14 years. He holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Economics and Sociology from Egerton University, and also a Master's in Regional and Urban Planning from the University of Nairobi. As KACWASCO, we are privileged to have benefited from the support by WKWP, Western Kenya Western Kenya Water Project. Karibu Mr. Mbuvi to address us. Mr. Mbuvi is going to address us at a global level on challenges facing WSPs, both rural and urban WSPs, in especially governance and policy issues, and also coming in with presenting avenues for us to unlock these challenges by presenting partnership opportunities for these WSPs in order to overcome the challenges we are facing in the water and sanitation service provision. Karibu, Mr.
Good evening. One of the things that you must avoid is that I'm not the traditional water person, because I come from an urban planning background. And so a lot of what I'm telling you may either come out of what I've experienced, or possibly I'm just cooking it all. You'll have to tell by the time I finish. Again, also, just like Christabel has been able to mention, I will be talking from a global, but I've really narrowed it down to more of an African perspective. But again, posing and asking questions at every stage. Does this speak to Kenya? Does this speak to Kakamega? That's a lens I want to take. But very briefly, as you have heard, I'm Japhet Mbuvi, the Chief of Party for the Western Kenya Water Project. And the Western Kenya Water Project is a $24 million USAID funded program that is working within 8 counties in Western Kenya, Kakamega being one of them. So every county that was Western and Nyanza, apart from Vihiga and Nyamira. And don't ask me why not Vihiga and Nyamira. That's a question for USAID. Our overall goal is to increase the availability and access to water services in the Western Kenya region, and at the same time paying attention to better management of the water resources in the area. So we are working across 5 thematic areas in urban water services, trying essentially to work with KACWASCO and the rest to try and help them improve their operational efficiencies. And since we're talking about investment, the whole idea of improving operational efficiencies is one that is geared to improving the creditworthiness of the institution so that they can be able to reach out for commercial finance. In the rural water space, we are working now, in this case with KACWASCO, and the whole idea is really working around helping them in the operationalization and implementation of the different service delivery models that have been developed by WASREP. And within all this, we do appreciate the inadequacy of public funding in the sector. So we have got a financing section that looks at bringing in private sector engagement into the sector, but also recognizing the fact that the elephant in the house, in terms of the major challenge in the sector is governance. We also are working on helping the counties develop the relevant policies and work around issues of governance in the water sector. And again, then, from an African perspective, and Kenya, and again, Kakamega, this sector faces significant financial needs due to the many challenges that have been mentioned by the others. I want to mention 4 keywords that I will oscillate around as I make my pronouncements. One is the poor coverage, hence inadequate access, and the unreliability of the service. That the CEO did mention that it's only in Mumias where they've got a 24-hour service. In many of the other places, we have got intermediate services, some 4 hours, some 5 hours, and the rest. We have got also serious operational inefficiencies that manifest themselves in the high non-revenue water. There are also issues of limited connectivity in terms of the area of coverage. And in terms of the operational inefficiencies that you're talking about, poor collection and billing, and again, the systems, as is mentioned, they're old, so they are what we may be calling dilapidated. And therefore, that in itself also presents an investment opportunity. As I mentioned, poor governance that exhibits itself in terms of acts of corruption, inappropriate institutional arrangements, and what I would want to refer to as bureaucratic inertia that is actually caused by insufficient human capacity and occasional political interference. We are not going to be able to run away from that. So we have occasional political interference in the way we run our systems, and this also creates problems. There is also inadequate funding then, and lack of clarity in capital resource ownership and control, and in our case in Kenya, mainly between the counties and the national government institutions. And therefore, this clarity is something that therefore also affects how we do invest in the countries, in the counties and in Kenya as a whole. I therefore want to argue that investing in the water sector is a condition for the prosperity of African economies. And this means that if we really want to prosper as an economy in Kenya, we have got to invest in the water sector. Kakamega as a county has got to invest in the water sector if it has got to prosper as a county. In a very difficult macroeconomic and financial context, combined with a fall in official development assistance, the challenge of financing the water sector are becoming even more acute in Africa. And this, as I said, whenever I say Africa, just ask yourself, does that translate to Kenya and then to Kakamega, so that we can have that discourse later on. In every 3 people across Africa, one in every 3 people in Africa face water scarcity. How does that reflect to Kakamega? So 447 million people are denied even a basic access to water, and 805 million lack basic sanitation services. The reality is that water accounts for a limited proportion of public budgets in Africa, and budgets allocated to water are not even fully spent. Am I talking to somebody? So does this apply into our country, or does this apply to our counties? To put in some statistics into this, between 2009 and 2020, 2% of global public spending targeted water, which represented approximately 0.44 of the GDP on average. Those are statistics from the World Bank. So you see, we talk about how water is central, and you can see the proportion of the budget globally that we're putting into water. So in Africa, national government budgets for water have actually fallen over that particular period of time. And where they have not even fallen in real terms, they have fallen in terms of a percentage of the GDP. For Kenya, for example, you will find that some of the statistics that we are having are that we have been able to progressively come from the 2% to even 0.7% of our GDP in terms of the water budgets. Others would argue that those many years ago, we have actually tripled the investments in water. But I'm talking about the percentage of the GDP has been falling. So, while cost recovery also may differ between countries, from rural and urban settings also, tariffs from the water services applied in Africa are far below cost recovery levels. So less than half of African countries can cover more than 80% of the operating and maintenance costs for water services through tariffs. And this is an area of major concern that we really need to be able to address. I mentioned about the tariffs. I may also want to argue that it's not only tariffs that matter in this case. And the reason here is because even where we have subsidies, our subsidies are inefficient. They are not properly targeted, and therefore they frequently benefit households that are already connected to the network and high-income households, and fail to reach the poor that we want to target. Despite these particular challenges, the urgency of the water crisis, Africa presents significant opportunities for sustainable investments for water. Africa, and this has been said by many, is among the fastest growing regional economies in the world, and therefore there is a significant, what I would call a significant market for investments in the sector. But without efficient investments in the water sector, there will be no sustainable development. investing in water has multiplier effects to all sectors of the economy. Every US dollar invested in climate resilient water and sanitation yields US $7 in gains to the economy. The cost of inaction is one we cannot afford. Nearly $200 billion US are lost yearly due to lack of investments in the water and sanitation in the continent. And as I talk about this, I have said, I have a reflection of how these global Africa numbers translate into Kenya. Or are we saying that we are better than our fellow African countries? No. My use of this statistics is only that these were the ones that were available to me, and I did not want to come here and start telling you stories that I cannot be able to back with the data. So management of water resources also must be in line with the country's economic development strategies. And I'm happy about the many things that I've heard about your pillars in agriculture, and that this means that then we need to take a holistic approach that recognizes the complexity of the water services and the interconnectivity of the different systems that are there. Bridging the financing gap will require a more effective use of the diverse sources of finance for water. And in particular, this is about what Isaac was talking about, the different blended financing sources that we are likely to be having in the country. But again also, very important to improve sector prioritization by governments and the strengthening of the enabling conditions that the Waziri talked about having been doing in the county. And this then will be able to create robust water strategies and create credit-worthy utilities. But as we do this, we need to have stable regulation and long-term predictable water portfolios. As I move on to finish, what then needs to be done? I want to argue that there is significant scope to mobilize private sources of finance for water in Africa more effectively by strengthening the water investment frameworks and diversifying financing instruments. The limitations of mobilizing the private sector for water should be clearly understood to enhance this effectiveness. And I think a lot of work has been done into this. You have heard what Isaac and team in the Water Services Trust Fund have been doing so as to be able to de-risk some of the portfolios that they've been working on. And then I would also state that the water risk is an important source of vulnerability in African economies, given the dependencies, the dependencies on primary sectors. And here I'm talking about that water in itself is a driver. I mentioned that earlier about the multiplier effect. Water is a driver of many other sectors. And so the need to understand what we call the principle of double materiality, whereby the actions of, where your actions actually have got an impact on the actions of others, and it would also impact negatively on your financial well-being, it should be very clearly understood by all the actors, both on the demand as well as on the demand as well as on the supply side. So sub-Saharan Africa remains the area in the world with the lowest access to sanitation. National regulators are increasingly involved in regulating and monitoring sanitation in addition to water, and have a key role to play in unlocking the finances for sanitation also. Governments and regulators are responsible for lowering the transaction costs for investors, including the private ones, and providing clear entry points and long-term project pipelines. I know I did mention that we are working on the water sphere alone, but again, you cannot be able to divorce the water from sanitation. My last statement on this is that for African water utility leaders, sector prioritization from national government, tailored regulation, increased flexibility in financial conditions from financing agencies, and the capacity building will greatly help them to face this challenge and that serves to unlock opportunities for financing. So African utility leaders could benefit from sharing their challenges and successes with fellow leaders through many different forums available in the continent. I am happy that Abogo is here. One of the forums that you really do have, starting from our local state here, is WASPA. And that becomes really a forum whereby discussions and peer learning can really be able to happen so that you can be able to know how to be able to to solve this challenge. And to finish, the USAID Western Kenya Water Project has been supporting the counties to be ready for investments and the co-investments by helping them create the enabling environment, increase budget allocations, and nurturing linkages with the private sector on financing and technology. You did hear Her Excellency the Ambassador do mention the work that KACWASCO is doing around, and the HIVE and all that. These are private sector partners that we are linking up with to be able to increase, or also to be able to produce change in this investment space. I must congratulate Kakamega County, and they say that you have seen an increase in the overall budget allocation for water. But how does this measure in terms of the percentage of your total county budget? That is food for thought. Thank you very much, and let's continue the discussion.
Thank you so much. The Chief of Party, you said Western Kenya Water Project. Without much ado, we are now moving into the panelist section, and I know that you could be having questions reserved for the speakers, our four speakers. Please hold on them. We want to get into the panelist session, and I would like to call our four panelists. They can just move to the front. The CEO WASPA. The CEO WASPA, the urban lead WKSP, Mr. Alfred Wendo, Dr. Stella Wanyama. As they come at the front, let's just give a round of applause to our speakers. And I would also like to recognize the presence of our chief officers. They can just be upstanding to introduce themselves. The chief officers present here, kindly, you can just be upstanding to introduce yourselves. Start with Madam Mariam.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Makabera, Chief Officer Environment, Natural Resources and Climate Change, County Government of Kakamega.
Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our panelists, starting from the extreme left. Our extreme left, we have Mr. Alfred Okeyo Adongo. Mr. Alfred Okeyo Adongo is the CEO, Sana International Holding. Mr. Alfred Okeyo Adongo has over 35 years experience, having started from Maji House as a planner and later on moved to BKH Engineering as a consultant. BKH are the Netherlands consultants. After that, Mr. Alfred Okeyo has worked with International Labour Organization, and currently he leads Sana International, a lead wash sector player that emerged the second best Kenyan wash sector service during the first National Water Week ranking. Mr. Alfred Okeyo has, he's accredited by pioneering innovative water service delivery and financing models in the Lake region of Kenya, apart from being the key player in conceptualization and formulation of reputable low-income area service delivery models. This has been successful in our sister company, KACWASCO. He also is the lead of the water action groups that are adopted by WASREP and emerged from SANA, or World Bank WSP pilot projects in Kisumu. Currently, Alfred is working as the head of Sana International Holding Limited team, which has implemented an innovative professional management model in 5 utilities, Homa Bay, Kisumu, and Kisii counties. Our second panelist is Mr. Anthony Ambugo. Mr. Anthony Ambugo from the second left. Mr. Anthony Ambugo is the CEO of WASPA. WASPA is the Water and Sanitation Service Providers Association. Mr. Anthony comes in with rich knowledge and experience in the water sector, having experience for over 15 years. He has worked with water utilities, and he's also worked currently as the CEO of WASPA. Mr. Anthony is a guru, actually is the pioneer of such conferences we are having today. We had one late last year, the WASPA at 20 conference in Mombasa, and therefore he has rich experience in governance and also utility management, which he's going to share with us today. Our next panelist is Dr. Stella Wanyama. Dr. Stella Wamalwa. Dr. Stella is a lecturer at Masinde Muliro University of Science and Technology. She is also the co-founder and board chair of Women in Water and Natural Resources Conservation. She is the country project lead for River Yala Water Fund, and this River Yala Water Fund is the only women-led fund globally. Dr. Stella has over 13 years experience as a conservationist, and through their initiatives, conservation initiatives, they have been able to adopt 300 acres in Kakamega Forest, 75 acres in Kibiri Forest in Vihiga, 100 acres in Kimondi in Nandi, 200 hectares in Mau Forest, just to mention a few, so that you appreciate some of the initiatives they have done in conservation as a response to climate change. Some of the supporters of the fund and the initiatives for the Yala Water Fund, we have the International Tree Foundation, which works together with the organization of Dr. Stella. We have Women at Alliance, and we also have the Nature Conservancy. Lastly, we have Miss Susan Kanga. Miss Susan Kanga works with the USAID Western Kenya Sanitation Project. We've been talking about water all along mostly, but now Ms. Susan Kanga comes in as the lead urban sanitation and business development partner for WKSP. Ms. Susan is a sanitation specialist, having worked with a number of SMEs across sectors. She also has over 10 years experience in the wash sector and business development. Ms. Susan is actually very passionate about sanitation matters. If you see Susan, Susan equals to sanitation. SS. Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, we want to get into the session with our panelists, and I will start with Mr. Anthony Ambugo. We've had our earlier speakers talk about issues governance, especially the COP, WKWP. Our MD partly mentioned about it. Our Waziri mentioned of the enabling environment, talking about the enabling legal framework for investor development. But this really touches or goes to our governance structures, and especially you having experience as a governance specialist in the water sector. I'd like you to share with us what you believe to be an effective governance that will ensure investors' confidence in the water sector. We've also talked about non-revenue water issues here. Our MD on our fact sheet, so he mentioned like KACWASCO's non-revenue water is at 41%. I know it's an issue affecting even the country. Generally, the non-revenue water percentage is 45%, and the sector standard WASREP expects non-revenue water to be at about 25%. Non-revenue water is actually an elephant affecting most of the water service providers. And I know governance and non-revenue water go together. So this governance crisis and the impact on non-revenue water management for WSPs is an area I'd just like you to highlight on how the two impact on WSP's operations, and also with a view of also building investors' confidence in investing in the water sector. Karibu, Mr. Anthony.
Thank you, moderator. I don't know if I'm audible enough. Thank you also for the organizers of this investment conference for giving me this opportunity to be on this set. I think that question is loaded. When you talk about governance, you talk about non-revenue water. These are very key performance metrics that are captured by the regulator. So in fact, it is said that the crisis in water is not a crisis of water itself, because water itself is the most abundant substance on planet Earth. It is a crisis of governance. And when we came out of COP28, because we are also faced with another unprecedented challenge as a globe of climate change, is that climate change is a crisis of water. I don't know if we are getting somewhere. The crisis of water is not a crisis of water itself. It's a crisis of governance. And climate change is a crisis of water. So if you fix governance, you are able to fix the water crisis. And by extension, you are also able to address the challenge of climate change. So Adrian Cadbury, an authority, and this was constituted because of problems with governance many years ago, defined corporate governance as how institutions, the processes, the systems, the framework of rules on how institutions are directed or controlled. Two things, control and direction. That is basically about governance. Some of the outstanding utilities in this nation, you will find they had enormous challenges. But when they addressed the governance issues, like Nyeri for the last 15 years, has been leading the sector. So it is important that governance is addressed from the shareholders level up to the consumer level. Because when you are talking of governance as systems, you will find at the apex of a company, you have the board of directors. And who is responsible for appointing the board of directors? You will find it is the shareholder. So very, very important, because the board now has a mandate, and I'm happy the board, I can see the board chair, in terms of providing strategic direction, control, oversight. We now talk of insight and foresight to ensure overall success of the organization. So I don't want to go into theory a lot, but one thing that is very clear as we relate to investment, and this has been alluded by our brother Kega, the balance sheet of the government is already crowded. And that is why we have now to look at innovative ways. How do we crowd in private sector finances through innovative financing and innovative technologies to address some of the challenges that have been highlighted by Engineer Ogol. I'm happy, Engineer, you did it well. And we have a long history, that is for another day. But we were two MDs in one company, several years ago. I was the managing director, he was the assistant managing director. I'm happy it's the MD now. So, when it comes to the issues of non-revenue water, we are losing around 11.4 billion. This is a colossal amount of money. And what I've seen, we are doing both at national as at county level. We are now conceptualizing projects that address infrastructure investment in terms of water, sewerage, and maybe sanitation. But rarely do we have huge investments in terms of management of non-revenue water. So as a sector, we have a turnover of 23 billion. And if we remove the 20%, then the loss is 11 billion. So I think it is important that we address, and this is what we are now doing as an association, the challenges of non-revenue management within the reticulation system. And this will require for systems to be put in place. The regulator already has provided that framework. Even in terms of the organizational structure, if you want to manage non-revenue water, do you have a structure, a functional one, that also recognizes the non-revenue water department? This is very, very important, because they are given specific mandates in terms of addressing that. So the other issue that is very, very important in terms of addressing non-revenue management, because it calls for further investment, is the issue of tariff structures of utilities. Mbuvi has alluded to that many governments do not have a fully cost recovery tariff. And this is the problem that is now facing Kenyan utilities. Even those utilities that had full cost recovery tariffs are now in problems. Because of what? Inflation, and we also saw the price of money, that is the foreign exchange rate. And this is where we are calling now for us having indexed tariff, not only on inflation, because chemicals like chlorine come from outside the country, so you are faced with foreign inflation and also domestic inflation, but the price of money too. Then the other one is the high energy cost, and you heard the MDs talking of solarization. Those are just alternative sources of energy to address that. So I don't want to go into details, but just in summary that with a proper governance structure, you are able to convince the investors that you are ripe for investment. If you are able to have a very good billing efficiency, are you able to identify your customers? Do you know where they are? Customer identification survey. And you profile them. A very good example is from Ruiru Juja, which has 50,000 customers. But they realized that 40,000 of the customers were bringing 30 million per month. But 10,000 were bringing 70 million. So there was a lot of work with the 40,000 customers, but you get 30 million. So you don't neglect them, but you have 1,000 customers. So when they realize these are the consumers bringing high revenue, these were the ones who were targeted for technology and smart metering. So this is Pareto principle. 20% of your customers bring 80% of your revenue. So where do you put your energies? Very, very important. So holistically as an association, what we are doing is to work with utilities to ensure that all these challenges provide opportunities for investment, and we bring technopreneurs on board and the financiers. And I think Kakamega, KACWASCO has been identified as one of the utilities, and we will be deploying the DMA model because statistics show it is the best way to address non-revenue water. If you go to Nyeri, for the last 15 years, do you know they don't have a single meter, a single smart meter, but they have a moving average of 15%. So you address the reticulation system. You have a hydraulic model. Smart metering is not for every customer. So if a customer is paying 200, did you meter that a customer on a smart meter, which is around 15,000? Your return on investment will be 6-7 years. It's a waste. So like Rujuja, they have one customer who now consumes 10 million. So this is a customer that you put on a smart meter, but they are different. R200 technicians understand. You can go even to R500. This is a meter that measures with a lot of precision. If it just smells a drop of water, it will read. But there are those meters when water is passing, they are asleep. They are not aware that water is passing. So the use of efficient technologies. So if I buy a meter of 3 million and this customer will give me 10 million, I have return on investment. When I'm even playing golf as an MD, I can see the flow rate that is going into the consumer. You don't need to go to the field. You eliminate human interference. So we strongly advocate for use of technologies. So let me stop there. I don't want to go into details, but in a nutshell, it shows that if you have working systems, billing system, smart metering systems, you have functional GIS, you're able to identify with precision where is the customer. When you are reading the meter, then you have a gadget that provides you even the, is it called the GPS position? Because some of the meter readers, if you harass them, have been an MD. Somebody goes under a tree and he populates the figure. That is a source of non-revenue water. So with efficient systems, investors, I think, once they are sure that they give you money, you are able to bill. I don't want to say collection is a problem in the sector. It's not. The average is over 90%. When you are providing water, then there's no problem about collection efficiency. What we should be talking about is billing efficiencies. Are you able to bill the customers that you have? Have you identified where they are? So if you don't know where your customers are, you don't know the type of pipes you have, then as engineer said, if you can't measure, you can't manage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony. On that highlight on the nexus of governance and non-revenue water. Over to Alfred Adongo. The need for financing has been emphasized by all our speakers, and especially private financing. Isaac Kega of WSP said currently what WSTF said currently what WSTF is doing with the WSPs is going for results-based financing and encouraging WSPs or trying to lead WSPs to commercial financing and private partnerships. Having experience in this and best practices in private sector engagements, could you share your experience with us, including financing models and significant lessons learned?
Thank you. First of all, I must say it's a great pleasure for this opportunity to view our experience as Sana Holdings. Sana is a social enterprise which is established by an NGO called Sustainable Aid in Africa. And it was established in an effort to try and bridge a significant gap in the sector. We all will realize that in most cases, development partners think of water, the needs, they come up with the plans for investment, they construct the facilities, but there is never a full value chain in water, particularly in the rural and the small scale utilities. And so SANA came on board to try and bridge that gap. And if you look at recent statistics, it also shows that close between 20 to 40% of our small utilities are not functional. And the ones which have been constructed, within 3 to 5 years, they go back to disuse, not functional at all. And if you look closely, the key causes of this unfortunate situation is inadequate funding or lack of funds within these particular utilities. Number two, management skills. You'd find that as corporate social responsibilities, some companies and even donors develop huge projects and hand them over to your parents, our parents, to manage. And at the end of the day, you don't have the capacity to manage this. So lack of management capacity is a big challenge. A major challenge is the issue of governance, which my brothers articulated very well. My task here is to share with you our experience as SANA on financing, particularly the rural schemes. Also to share with you our experience in to do professional management of these utilities. First of all, I'll start with the issues of financing. SANA, we have been trying to access credit financing through our Credit for Water development program, which I'm proud to say was actually pioneered by my friend here, Engineer Calvins. We pioneered with him a Credit for Water scheme whereby the small utilities were identified with viable sources and given credits of up between 1 million to 4 million shillings. And then in our first model, we actually gave the resources, the funds to the community, to the utilities, the PMCs directly, and hoped that they will raise the money and repay us back. The second model was whereby, with that first model, we didn't go very far. We were only able to realize about 30% of the we gave out. So we changed our model a bit, and now gave the resources almost the same level of 3 to 5 million shillings to the small utilities, but we co-managed the facility with them, but they still control the funds, and they were the ones to, at the end of the month, to decide on what to give us. Again, this model did not work well, and we were able to recover only about 50% of what we gave out. Then we came up with a different model, which we've been implementing over the last about 3 years, which is a BOT model, where we identify a viable scheme, we provide the funding needed, then we implement, then we operate the facility ourselves, and even the resources. Then once we have recovered all our investments, then we hand them over to the utilities to manage themselves. With this approach, we have been able to get at least 90% of the resources we gave in. So it's a situation where you build, you operate, then once you've recovered your resource, you're able to give it back to the community. In most cases, the small utilities, they'll make the money, but repaying you do not become a priority to them. So that was our experience, and we also realized in terms of financing, in terms of periods, you need periods of between, initially we're giving 3 to 5 years period, but realize that utilities needs up to 8 to 10 years period for effective recovery at a pace which they can afford. On the other hand, we've also had experience in terms of management models. At SANA, we've been trying to bridge that gap. As I said, a number of utilities have been developed and they're not sustained because there's lack of management capacity. So we have been able to partner with communities to manage their facilities. Initially, we were co-managing with them, but we realized that under the co-management, still the communities had an upper hand on how the resources are being used and so on. And we still had problems because they are responsible for even minor repairs. Even then they would have to go for somebody else for major repairs. The result is that we ended up with a lot of delays in even making small, as for example, there's a project we're running in Homa Bay, a motor got burnt. It took about 3 years for the county government to get the 300 shillings. Now we have changed, and presently we are proposing, we are recommending a lease model. The lease model, we look for a viable utility, a utility with a reliable source and has consumers of 500 to 1,000 consumers, and we partner with the county governments. Then we have an arrangement. Under this arrangement, the entire scheme is given to some to operate and manage, but then we pay a particular sum to the county government. This has proved to be working quite well. The most recent one we have with the Homa Bay County, where a utility was given to us. It was done by KenGen sometimes back, and it was not operational. And within like about 2 months after being given to us, we were able to access resources, our own resources from the banks and so on, our own customers, and revive the scheme and start supplying key institutions which have not been having water for several years. So we find that moving on, the lease model is more effective in addressing the issues of management of utilities, particularly in the rural areas. Now, in terms of, there are some necessary environment required for these arrangements, be it for financing or for management. One, we need to have an enabling policy environment. And for example, the counties need to have their Water Act in place. They also need to have the regulations and so on in place. This provides for the PPP arrangement, because as I've said, the lease arrangement which we are having with the county government of Homa Bay, it would be hinged on that kind of instrument where you have a PPP where you can have a partnership with another private partner. We also need higher connectivity, and for this reason, there's need for to forge partnership for financing for last mile connectivity, because for these utilities to function effectively, there is a minimum number of connections which makes it meet some minimum thresholds. And I think these are key lessons which we need to have in place in order to address the issue of connectivity, the issue of management, and also the issue of financing. And as SANA, we are willing and looking forward to collaboration even with Kakamega County. And the advantage of having the private sector, you have a chance to even tap on new opportunities, like in West Kenya Water Program. They have a package which encourages private partnership within the sector. So if you have a collaboration, for example, with the private sector like SANA, you are able to tap on that product. If you don't, you're left with only products like the ones under the rural and the ones under urban and so on. But involving private sector, you're able to tap on this, and also the private sector is able to look for other resources and complement the county resources. Otherwise, thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Alfred. Now over to Dr. Stella. We have heard from our earlier speakers also the issue of climate change, and good thing you've done in adopting various acres of lands in our forests as an initiative of the Women in Water Conservation to conserve our environment. We know this conservation has an impact, has a direct impact on our water sources. Without belaboring on this, could you share with us the best practices in water conservation and involvement of women in water conservation as a climate change initiative?
Thank you so much for this opportunity. It's a great opportunity for me, because what I'm going to share about is a new idea that probably has not been adopted by many. So this is is a good platform for me. I am going to emphasize on two things. Still on the need for us to invest in water, to ensure water security. And I want to dwell on two things. One, mainstreaming of gender, involving women in the whole process of conservation. And two, ensuring that we acquire water security, which definitely is going to give us food security and environmental security. And on this, I want to say this, that it has been noted and it's acknowledged that women interact with natural resources most of the time, and they bear the brunt of any form of destruction that occurs in natural resources. The brunt of climate change impact is actually borne by women. So when you rally them behind every effort that one would want to make in the area of conservation and especially water security, food security, you can be sure that you have 100% support from women. And as an organization, Women in Water and Natural Resource Conservation have done this, and I'm just here to applaud the fact that this is something that works. As an organization, we work in 16 counties in this country. We have women groups that we have trained, we have provided a platform for them to learn, and they have become climate change resilience accelerators. So they train other people all around. We also do the same work in Uganda, in Tanzania, and even in Rwanda. So this is something that is working. And studies have shown that if we can be able to fill up the gap, the gender gap, then we stand on a global level, we stand an opportunity of increasing the global GDP by 28 trillion shillings, US dollars. So this is something that has been researched, it's something that is known, that it is paramount for each one of us to include women in the investments that we would want to make in anything that pertains to climate change, adaptation, and mitigation. And this will give us sustainability in this area. We're not saying that men are not working, but we're just saying that women have more time to spend on these activities, so long as there are alternative livelihoods that come by the conservation processes. So the gender mainstreaming is one thing. Another thing that I want to share, and which is new actually in the world, maybe it's not so new in other places, but in our county, I find it a little bit new, and this is embracing nature-based solutions in our investments. Now, investments in water security, I would say, can be done in two ways. You can go the way of gray infrastructure, and you can also go the way of green infrastructure. And my predecessors have labored, they have talked so much on the gray infrastructure and how we can invest in that to be able to improve our water resources, and I really appreciate. But I'm here to talk about the green infrastructure, and this involves the use of nature-based solutions. And previous speakers have talked about the levels of water, the quantity of water going down, and the desire that we supply water up to the doorstep. Then one asks, so where will this water come from? If at the point where we are as we speak, the amount of water in the rivers have gone down, what is this one thing that we can do to be able to improve and increase the amount of water in our rivers and other water bodies, so that then our governor can be able to achieve what he is yearning for, to provide water to every doorstep. And this can only be achieved can be exemplified, and that's what I'm going to do, in the model of a water fund. And the water funds are set up in such a way that you are bringing together very many stakeholders, those that are occupying the upper watershed areas, the middle watershed areas, and the lower watershed areas. Bring them on board and let those people who are deriving benefits from water downstream be encouraged to be able to invest a little of the money that they are getting through the activities that they are carrying out into alternative livelihoods that will be carried out at the watershed, at the source of the water, so that then we can be able to be assured of a continuous flow of water. I want to make relevant example and indication on the River Yala Water Fund. And this is actually the third water fund that we have in Kenya. The first one was started in Upper Tana, and it's doing perfectly well. It's supplying Nairobi and the upper part of Central Region so well. And after that, the Eldoret Iten Water Fund came in, and it's also doing well. The first water fund in Western Kenya is the River Yala Water Fund, and this is a women-led water fund. All the others, the 16 water funds we have in Kenya, are led by men, except this one that just started the other day. And what I mean here is that it's paramount for us to speak to the people in Tindinyo, in Nandi County, because that's where our water as Kakamega comes from. And on starting and moving along with the River Yala Water Fund, I have encountered, have had sessions with the people in Nandi, and it's really very evident that sometimes they feel the water that runs down in the river does not benefit them. So we really have to talk to them, incentivize them, so that they can be able to accept to take care of the watershed, so we can be able to get water in Kakamega, in Vihiga, and even in Siaya. So that's what the Water Fund does. And as I speak, we have brought together stakeholders in Nandi, in Vihiga, in Kakamega, and I want to report this, that many people are interested in supporting the Water Fund. And this is because there are benefits that are derived, one, by the water companies. This river supplies 4 counties, that is Nandi, Vihiga, Kakamega, and Siaya. So we have the 4 water companies. And the model of the Water Fund is scientific in nature. Like before it starts, like the way we started, you do your feasibility study, but after that, you develop a business case that anyone can look at and see the benefits that come out of the Water Fund. And for the business case that we have built for Yala River Water Fund, it is really evident that if you invest just $1 million in nature-based solutions, and when I say nature-based solutions, I actually mean you're planting indigenous trees on the riverbanks, in the riparian areas, and you are also standing and supporting the farmers who live around the source of the river by helping them, training them in land planning. So you have farm planning going on, you have terraces going on, you are planting for them vetiver grasses, napier grass. You are pumping water from the river where you do not want them to be. You take the water for them in their homestead, so their animals can be able to drink from there, and their people, their families can be able to utilize that water. And with that, you get them out of the water, out of the river, out of the wetlands, out of the forests, so that you can allow for regeneration in the natural resources. I just want to say one more thing. I want to emphasize the benefits that come out of nature-based solutions. I've already mentioned that they come with alternative livelihoods that are brought on table for the conservationists to partake. So the people living riparian to the river or the source of the river will be given alternative livelihoods, so that they can be able to make some money and replace what they used to get from the river banks or the riparian areas. And apart from that, the small-scale farmers, and along the catchment of River Yala, you have over 2,000 small-scale farmers within Nandi. quite a high number. Actually, the total number of people who depend on it is 1.7 million if you run all the way up to Siaya. So these 1.7 million people are going to benefit on the nature-based solutions as you give them the trees, the avocados, the fruit trees to plant, providing water pans for them, then they also benefit from that. The second beneficiary, and the one that brings us here, are the water companies. The way the water fund works is that we carry out scientific investigation and we collect data. We take water quality parameters in the laboratories, and that is done at the beginning and compare it probably after a number of years. So you can know that at the beginning, the stability of the water was this level. Plant your trees, plant your indigenous trees, your bamboo, and your riparian crops that you're planting. Then at the end of it, you can be able to compare and see how much has reduced. Now, the business case that we did showed very well that if you invest in nature-based solutions, this reduces the amount of soil that gets into the water in terms of sedimentation. It also reduces the fertilizers that get from the rivers into the water because you've done terracing and planting of grasses, so that prevents the entry of nutrients into the water. And if you compare from the study that has been done, it's very, very evident that the water companies will save a very high amount of money that would have gone into treatment to ensure that the water that is distributed out is safe. So if we want safe water for our people, the best and easiest way and very cheap is embracing nature-based solutions. So that at the end of it then, we can be able to lower the cost of treatment of water and allow our water companies to be able to deliver water that is safe unto our people. And I want to say that this would be the cheapest way of us conserving our waters. And it looks at not just the quality of water, but the quantity of water that we are going to have over time. So as we proceed, if we want to increase the amount of groundwater, the amount of water in our rivers, and this has been done scientifically by river caging stations, and it has been proved that the amount of water will increase if you deliver nature-based solutions. So I think I want to stop there, and if there's any question, we'll interact. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stella, for that. I know also women and their passion. I said Susan is very passionate about sanitation. Given an opportunity, she will take a whole day. But Susan, I hope you take not more than 7 minutes. We know sanitation service provision in low-income areas is the next frontier in closing the coverage gap on sanitation. And also, WSP is currently, especially KACWASCO, is focusing on the opportunities and incentives for private sector investment on sanitation for poor areas. Recently, you undertook an institutional capacity assessment for KACWASCO and also supported us on policy development. What were the key gaps identified, and how can the gaps be bridged?
Thank you, Christabel. Good evening. Christabel, I hope it was not intentional that I was the last speaker, given that sanitation is still a baby to water, despite the fact that, as Ambugo says, that climate change is a crisis to water. I think sanitation is a crisis to climate change. So that gives us the question of where we need to put our priorities. As the CC was speaking, he talked about climate change funds. There is an opportunity for sanitation to access climate change funds. And to our CC, already there is an opportunity for us in Kakamega County to support our sanitation initiatives through these funds. I want to start by talking about the enabling environment, particularly for sanitation. Of course, I've mentioned that sanitation is given a very small space. And as you can see, I am about 10 against 1 who is talking about sanitation. However, there is much that we need to do. And when I start with enabling environment, I want to bring to our attention. People think that there is a crisis in sanitation when it comes to policies and regulations. And I say nay. Why? Because at the national level, and I want to speak to our Kenyan context and Kakamega County as well. At the national level, in around, was it in 2018, we developed the CASH policy. This is Kenya Environmental Sanitation and Hygiene Policy. The policy is not in conflict with our sanitation management policy, because when the Kenya Environmental Sanitation Policy was developed, it created a platform for WASREC to come up with guidelines. And the guidelines was for the non-seaward sanitation. At this time, there was a lot of discussions around sanitation. So the first thing to do was to come up with the regulatory instruments to govern sanitation. Later on, we have now the sanitation management policy. And this is coming in to complement what utilities are doing. As we are all aware, utilities were initially sewerage companies. Today, they have adopted the name sanitation. The question is, how sanitation are our utilities? And I will start by saying that at the utility level, most of our utilities beyond sewerage, they have only taken exhauster service providers as the only sanitation service that they are offering. I'm very impressed with Kakamega Water and County, the Kakamega County Water and Sanitation Company, because at the onset of the project USAID Western Kenya Sanitation, we had a sat down and we said, how do we make Kakamega Water become a sanitation company? And the first thing was to help in reviewing their strategic documents. That included the strategic plan. Today, as we speak, Kakamega County has a pro-sanitation strategic plan, attracting close to 100 million. That is about 10% of their intended budget projection of 1 billion. As we speak today, Kakamega County has already created a resource mobilization committee. And the intention of the resource mobilization committee is to bring on board players to support both water and sanitation. I also want to applaud Kakamega County Water Company, because it is one of the companies that has embraced sanitation to the extent that they have created a dedicated unit with dedicated staff for sanitation. That calls for or speaks to how much Kakamega County has embraced sanitation. Back to the capacity assessment. Before we embarked on supporting, we did a capacity assessment. And all these things that we have mentioned, the policy environment, were gaps that were identified in the capacity assessment. Some of the things that we anticipate to do is to create a citywide, I call Kakamega a city because I see it as a city soon, a citywide inclusive sanitation plan. Why citywide inclusive sanitation? We have different sectors working in silos. For us to realize fund mobilization and utilization, we need all the sectors sitting together to discuss sanitation. This is a table that will invite the Department of Water and Sanitation. The table will invite Department of Health as an enforcer. The table will invite Department of Finance as a key body that is supporting both allocation and utilization of budgets. This will also attract a number of departments where we can sit and say, this is the plan, the bigger plan for Kakamega County, and this is what we intend to achieve within the sanitation space. I also want to speak to some of the things that we have mentioned. Dr. Stella has just mentioned about nature-based technologies. As USA WKSP, we are keen on bringing in technologies that are pro-sanitation and as well as climate smart. As we are doing this, we need to be cognizant of the expertise or the knowledge that is within our local context, particularly around product development and technologies. Last week, I supported a number of entities or businesses to bring technologies that are supporting fecal sludge management. And one of the technologies that we were bringing, and this was to be imported from the Netherlands, is a poo-poo pump. Late last year, the poo-poo pump was costing about 700,000. When now a small enterprise is now requesting to purchase a poo-poo pump upon realization of fundings through linkages with financial institutions, the price of the poo-poo pump has gone up to 1.2 million. That is a big percentage increase. Why is the increase? It's because of our foreign exchange. Mr. Mbugo has just spoken about the foreign exchange risks. We need to think of how do we tap into the local expertise around technologies to be able to build our sanitation portfolio or the wash portfolio. Sanitation, by the way, attracts around 17 billion into our GDP annually. And that gives it a reason as to why we need to invest in sanitation. As USAID Western Kenya Sanitation Project, we are also looking into public-private partnership. And in Kakamega, we have brought on board the low-volume players, like the artisans. We have brought on board the manual pit emptiers, who are going to partner with the county government as well as KACWASCO to be able to provide sanitation service. Beyond that, we are also working closely with financial institutions. And this was a gap that Kakamega had. Today, we are working with financial institutions like Syrian Bank, Cooperative Bank, Family Bank, to be able to support the KACWASCO to be more bankable through our engagement or through linkages. We support business-to-business engagement as we also bring in build their capacity to be able to access these funds. One of the first ever business plan was developed this year for KACWASCO, and the business plan is projected at around 1.2 billion. So we need to work with, and the MD just told us that as of today, they are at 300 million. The question is, where are we going to get the about 70% deficit of funds to support realization of access to both water and safely managed sanitation in Kakamega County? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan, for the brief on sanitation. We've had an engaging session with our speakers, with our panelists. I know it's a rich source of information, key for us in unlocking investment opportunities in water and sanitation service provision. I'd like to take this opportunity to now hand over to the audience. I know you've been listening keenly. I know you've been noting down areas you wish to seek clarification or ask any questions. Let's have a brief 10-minute session questions. If you have any questions to pose either to the speakers or to the panelists, kindly, when you're posing the question, ask the specific speaker so that they can pick it up. I'll take the first batch of maybe 5 questions. Yes, starting with please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Engineer Pisodu. I'm from the PPP Directorate. My question goes to the MD, KACWASCO. It's more of a clarification. You've said that the water supply is at an 87% coverage. I wonder if this is piped water, or does it include the boreholes or the springs or the river? As the people serve the 87%, does it include people served by different sources of water or piped water? Then I noticed from your presentation that you have different needs that are itemized, different items. I also wonder if you've considered doing or acquiring these services as a PPP, other than the performance-based contracts that focus mostly on NRW. Would you also consider doing a large-scale PPP where you get a private investor who can abstract the water, do the piping, whether it's rehabilitating or extending the horizontal infrastructure, do the supply to the end user, the metering, the NRW management, the O&M phase of the water provision, essentially the whole cycle on a large scale, PPP as a one, packaged as a one project, similar to sanitation as well. You mentioned you have a treatment plant, I think, Nandi, Tindinya. I wonder if it's only the one, and if it's enough to meet the demands of the county, because you said sanitation is at 18%. I wonder if this is also the both seaward and non-seaward, if it's the piped, or it includes also the non-seaward, the containers, the pits, in other words. If this component can also be considered under a PPP, especially because of the high capital requirements for sanitation. Then along those lines, I'd also like to ask Water Sector Trust Fund. You will find that maybe if KACWASCO structures a project as a PPP, the large scale I'm talking about, it might be a strategic project, but it might not be bankable. Maybe the tariffs are too low. You mentioned you do some gap financing supported by World Bank. Is there a cap to this amount? Like if there's a viability gap financing requirement, would you be able to step in that regard when you have a PPP that is billions and billions of shillings, similar to USAID? Would you be able to do a viability gap financing to make a project bankable if it's a strategic project? And then finally, to SANA, you've mentioned you're doing a number of BOTs, but I wasn't quite clear if it's a water provision or it's sanitation. Do you do infrastructure provision, or is it just the O&M? And in the projects you've done, which are the future projects that you're looking to partner with? I'm assuming you partner as a private party, you partner with, do you partner with the utility as a public party, or is it through the county? Just a clarification for my better understanding. Thank you.
Well, engineer, I'd actually said I'll take the first batch of 5, so those are already 4. Can I take one last one before we get our panelists and speakers responding?
Good evening. My name is Angela Kezengo. I work for Royal Media Services, and I come from a county where someone mentioned, I'm not quite so sure who it was, I can't remember though, but when he was mentioning, I resonated with it. So there's this aspect where people were employed by the local government or the former regimes of the county government, and they know where the meters are. And he mentioned that the non-revenue water issues also come from that. that they know where the meters are or where the connections are, and they do not give the information to the incoming employees, and that's where the water is lost. I had a case where I was covering a story, and a family was saying that they do not receive water, but there's a particular school where this kind of employee is employed, was actually taken up by the school because they used to have issues of water, and he knew where the meters are, and he had not given that information to whoever was posted to that particular area. So I'm asking the MD for KACWASCO, because I know it also is an issue from where I come from, where this is affecting the water service company that is at the county, and I'm asking that, what are you doing to ensure that this does not affect your daily working, and how you provide water to the locals, and also the metering, and also billing and everything that is affecting us as the people that are using the water, and eventually, how does this affect your working? How do you now work to ensure that these people do not continue doing this? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's give our MD an opportunity to respond to the 3 questions. Then Isaac, WSTF, and finally Sana Alfred. Thank you. The mic.
So allow me to stand so that I feel the power. Now I have 3 pertinent questions that I want to address. One is from the engineer about the coverage, which is stated as 87%. Now, engineer, we normally have a system that is called the WARIS. WARIS is a system developed by WASREP in capturing the data on water supply coverage. So usually what happens with that system is they look at the population at the sub-county level, and then they look at the connections that you have and the kind of the connections. We have different category of connections. We have some which are the domestic connections which supply maybe up to 5-6 people. Then we have multi-dwelling population which serve especially the high-rise building and the story buildings. You have one connection serving 25. And then we have the water kiosk where we have one water kiosk serving up to 300 people. And we have the hot taps which serve until 25 people. So when you talk about the population, you look at how many connections do you have under various categories, and then you compare with the population in that service areas. That's how it's being calculated. But again, the catch in this particular place is the defined area. Like you see, Waziri said that our coverage in water is around 61, yet I said it is for our water companies around 87, because Waziri looks at the entire company, the entire county, which include both rural and urban, including even areas which are served by the community water schemes. But for a water company, we are licensed to supply water within the urban and peri-urban areas. So in Kakamega, we look at the town and peri-urban areas, so not the entire area. That's how we come up with the population coverage. The second question was on sanitation, and in sanitation, basically,